Continue the queue. Yes, so as Karen said, we're recording. And then the two tasks at hand that I was starting to mention is we have a new director of professional development with IIMC. So we'll be introducing Dr. B. Rodriguez for most of the part, but the other task at hand I was going to have Elizabeth get us started on is that kind of draft framework that she sent out to the entire committee yesterday. It's sort of a sum up of where we feel we're at right now with all of the hard work you guys have done on this committee, all the different ideas, everything that we have so far. So it's a topic of discussion that will be handed to B to look into. It's B's almost second week with us, so there's a lot of ins and outs with the organization itself that she's diving into. And then in addition to that, with everything that this committee has done and where this Beyond the MMC project started. So she's going to be diving into not only how it started, but we have the draft Beyond MMC that Dr. Long had started, the task force recommendation to go to from October 2019. President Sherry Pierce is joining us today. Her and Region 9 directors proposed a draft of the Beyond the MMC survey results that we had all looked into, all the replays from these meetings, the SLCC elephant guide. So a lot of different pieces that B is going to need to get caught up with. So we're hoping that in the near future that there's something that we can bring out of this, or Dr. B can help us bring out of all of that hard work to bring back to the IDs as well as hopefully the board. So with all of that said, I am actually going to introduce B, Dr. B. Rodriguez. She's our new Director of Professional Development. Anything you want to jump in and add, B?
Yeah, I want to say hi to everybody, and I'm really excited to see all the faces. And like Kelly said, I'm still really kind of acclimating myself to the organization. I have done some deep diving into the framework for the Beyond MMC, and I'm really excited because the hard work and effort is really demonstrated in a lot of the back and forth communications that I've seen. So I'm really excited because I think so far that the frame is really, really good. And I don't think that we're going to be too far off from being able to push something out. I'm happy that Sherry's here because that's going to be a big piece of it too. I've been just kind of meeting some of the IDs since I've been here, and I haven't yet had an opportunity to speak with Sherry. So I'm excited to do that. Once I do that, then I think I'll be able to put a lot of the pieces together to further the conversation to get us moving along. Outside of that, please feel free to just call me B. That is most comfortable for me. The doctor is for formalities, but I really prefer to just be called B. So feel free to do that.
Thanks, B. All right, so I think today, what I was going to have Elizabeth do was bring up that framework that she sent to us. I actually have it. Karen, if you are able, would you mind sharing my screen?
So Kelly, I emailed with Elizabeth day before yesterday, a couple things. And I'm sorry, and I should have just CC'd everybody on the education committee. I was in a hurry, I apologize. But I can kind of add some comments. What Elizabeth sent out to you all, I reviewed. I think she made a little bit of changes after based on my email. But so I think that what she sent is just kind of a good synopsis of for the committee to kind of comes to some consensus on today, that this is broadly what that we're all on the same page. But just before we get into this, I want to tell you that my suggestion was to her was after today, maybe the committee consider, and I want to get this in before Tammy leaves, and the rest of you guys, but that maybe the committee consider at this point, if we're all happy with kind of what the framework, this framework is, which is broad, maybe sending this on to B and to the Education Directors Subcommittee. And that's, I think, Joan Tilton, it's Cassie, and there's 3 or 4 other members. And I'm sorry, I don't have the list in front of me. But maybe that smaller subgroup to take this and try to do some refinement and bring it back to you. So those are just my comments before we get into this that I discussed with Elizabeth a couple of days ago. So take it away.
Perfect.
Sherry.
So it honestly sounds kind of like then with what we have on that framework, since you guys had that previous conversation, that yeah, maybe it's something that we just move forward with giving B and then the EAG. Does that sound like something we want to do instead?
I have a question.
Sure.
Is there anybody on that subcommittee from Region 11? Is Elizabeth Skinner or anybody included in that?
I don't think so, Tammy, but
so.
I don't think so, Tammy, but that's not to say that we can't for this particular task and discuss with B and as well and have some, but have maybe Elizabeth or join that committee. So that's, I don't think that's an issue.
Okay, it would be my suggestion that we reach out to somebody. If we're
Definitely.
going to use the SLCC plan, that they be included in helping us. I think it also helps with our international relations to, bring that bond closer together. But since they're using it the most, they're going to be the most helpful in making us blend it into what we have here.
Sure.
I think they'd be a really good advisor for putting, for this group or for whatever group.
And they would be, they would certainly be eligible to enter into this program as well. So I think it's necessary to have that representation.
Sounds good. So don't know if, shall we pull up that draft framework? Is there any other comments or anything along those lines that we need other than maybe moving this forward with the EAG and B?
No, I agree with the recommendation. Since they are heavy users of that guide, they'll be a good person to counsel us on the method of delivery.
Angela, I saw your hand.
Had to unmute. So yeah, as I was looking through it, I noticed that the 4 courses or coursework focuses were management, community planning, and engagement. And I missed the last couple of meetings, but I recall prior to those, we had management, leadership, supervision, and interpersonal skills. So I was just curious if the supervision, the leadership, and the interpersonal skills all fell within the management component of it.
I'm thinking those came from the SLCC's program. And if you see in the sentence above, it says that we're doing leadership skills in these quadrants. So I believe that they are all encompassed within each area. Those interpersonal skills and the leadership and those things that you mentioned.
Okay,
That's what I thought. I don't know what the rest of the group thought.
that sounds great. I just had noticed that. Thank you.
Good catch. I did have a question when I was looking back over it. I thought we already had something on our website on the dashboard where people could look at their certification points. Am I wrong? Has that not been implemented yet?
No, it's been an idea that was tossed around, kind of starting back with the task force in 2019. One of the areas that they wanted us to look at as kind of a forward goal is creating some type of a dashboard where our members can log in, see their points. But as of right now, it is just Ashley and I that handle that on our end as far as one-on-one communication with each member during that process. So as of right now, no. It's definitely something we want to look into in the future.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. I just wanted to let you know that I was connected. I caught the last few minutes of the conversation. Something regarding interconnected aspects of the, I believe it was the coursework. I'm not sure if that's what it was in reference to, and the dashboard. I'm not sure if there was already introductions made, and I see President Pierce and the new director be connected. Thank you for being here, and I'll let the discussion continue. I didn't know where we were at this point, if we were just reviewing the proposal, which as everyone's reviewing it, I'm going to be adding to it so that my idea is to get a final draft that we could submit.
Perfect. Thanks, Elizabeth. Yeah, we did some introductions, and President Pierce caught us up on some of the commentary that you and her were able to have with the draft that was sent out yesterday. And we were kind of just discussing that. So yeah, I was thinking what you could do is jump in and give us a little briefing on that draft. And if anybody has questions or additions, the one thing that has come out so far was that we probably need, when this goes to B and the Institute Director kind of subgroup of what we call the EAG, was that we have an international member of that EAG, Institute Director. So someone from Region 10 or 11, someone to jump in and give us their opinion as well. But I know that I see some hands raised. So that's kind of where we're at, Elizabeth. So definitely you can jump in and go through that framework with us that you sent out yesterday. But yeah, I think some people have some questions. I see Ruth and Casey.
My question is pretty quick. Regarding we were just discussing the item on the dashboard. And to me, that seems like more of a task, a project for staff. It doesn't really, to me, seem like it belongs in the framework for the Beyond the MMC program, that it's something that's applicable to any of our levels of certification.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Ruth. That was actually what came out of that task force meeting, was that it's something as staff, mainly for membership and certification, those processes that we go through with our members getting started. So yeah, it's something that not so much included with the Beyond the MMC. You're correct.
Okay, if I'm understanding, then I can remove that off of what we're proposing as part of our framework. And I also wanted to mention that, yes, in email communication with President Pierce, she had made some suggestions that I kind of tried to use some of her wording and to insert in the framework. And I'm not sure if she already mentioned, but she referenced the AAE program that I wasn't familiar with. She had mentioned that maybe a few of you may recall the AAE program.
I do.
Okay, that might be a way or to sustain the MMC program or the Beyond the MMC program that we're trying to create.
So Casey has her hand raised, so I don't want to go before her. I'll go after her.
Thank you. My question is pretty basic in nature. I'm pretty new to the committee, and I was on vacation, so I missed the last 2 meetings. So please forgive the very basic nature of my question. But I understand that this framework will go to our new education director and then also to the EDs. What is the timeline for adoption of the program, and what's the process after those 2 reviews? will it potentially go to membership at the next conference, or is it adopted at a more executive or staff level?
I can jump in. Right now, there's not something so much that we have forward to adopt. I believe in previous conversations and with the committee that it was brought forth that hopefully by the May 2020 board meeting at conference, that there's at least something handed to the board that the institute directors have taken a look at to hopefully either implement or have a kind of an approval discussion about. So at this point, we don't have a specific timeline. I know that Sherry, President Pierce, has really wants this to move forward. The issue I think that we all have at hand right now is there's not a very universal one and done, it's going to work for everybody, and there's a lot of different pieces to it. So time frame wise, I don't have an actual time frame, but correct me if I'm wrong. Anyone else on the committee remember anything other than the May 2020 board meeting, hopefully having something to bring forward?
So the president does. I want a program, I want this in place to take to the board in May. So that's my goal. So that we have something to take to the board to look at, to consider in May. So I'd like to have, a pretty completed program for them to take a look at that meeting. So no later than May. This is just a goal of mine as president of IIMC. This is a torch I've carried for years, and it's very, very important to me. So that's my answer to you, Casey. And I'm gonna keep pushing. So I'm gonna keep pushing us forward with it. Just quickly, because I know you gotta leave, Tammy, is the reason I brought up AAE to Elizabeth was I was having a discussion with Joanne Tilton last week on some other issues. But for those of us that remember that program, it was a sustaining program. You remember it, Tammy? It was AAE. And so it was just another example. We don't pattern off of it, specifically, just another example of a sustaining type program that we would do basically beyond a MMC. So just something else to look at about how that worked. And I only have one more comment, and then I'm going to shut up. I would like in the purpose, when this goes to the committee and to be in the purpose, the very first paragraph, I would like that to be, have a little bit more meat to it, in that I believe the purpose of this program is to create a lifelong learning opportunity for clerks. So not just a way for us to go to our management to send us to conferences and training. That's a huge part of it, because there's clerks being denied that opportunity. But I don't think the purpose is to develop this continued education, professional development track for clerks if they so choose. So that's it.
Can I just, if any, Sherry or anybody who has a framework of that AAE, just so I can take a view of that, so I can kind of get the concept or the gist of what you're referring to. If somebody would send that to me, I'd really appreciate that.
I'll get that to you. We
Thank
have
you.
records and things like that. We actually use it's a program that's since been eliminated, but even in the certification process, we still see some members coming back who were involved in that AAE program, and it doesn't affect their certification, but there's certain numbers of points that they can get for previous. So yeah, I'll send you all that info.
I have one quick question about in the additional considerations. I'm just curious, because I've also missed a meeting or two. The last one, include a provision for retired clerks that may want to continue receiving access to education. Did we talk about that and I was asleep at the wheel?
No, no, Tammy, I added it, I put on the comment suggesting this consideration. I was speaking to a few clerks in my area and a few retired clerks. With the state association, we've been trying to push for clerks that are retired to be in a CAPS program, they refer to it as, where retired clerks fill in positions temporarily at municipalities in need of interim clerks. And we're finding that a few of the clerks that are retired or have been retired for a little while are hesitant to get back into those roles because they've been out of touch with the clerk profession. So in talking to them about what the IMC is trying to develop as a beyond the MMC program, because these retired clerks, many of them have their MMC, but they stated that if the IIMC were going to consider doing a beyond MC, MMC program, that would it include an opportunity for retired clerks to also be involved. So I said, I'll add it for, for discussion purposes. And since it's a very much of a rough draft of the framework that we're trying to develop, to see what you all thought of adding that or considering that.
Okay. Good. Well, I'm glad I didn't miss it. It would be nice to provide some kind of refresher for
because it is lifelong learning
them. Absolutely.
And even though they're retired, they are still, as I said, filling in positions. Like in our area in South Florida right now, we have several positions open, and they're trying to fill them, with retired clerks, as interim clerks. I myself right now have a retired clerk who's assisting me as a 90-day temp. I'm trying to fill still the deputy clerk position in my office. So, there is a need for that.
Are you on the Gulf side?
No. I'm on the east side.
How far down? And if you're on the Gulf, let me know.
More closer to Miami area, Fort Lauderdale area. But I also wanted to ask if we had started going through this framework before I joined. I did the framework, and then I started putting in like little Post-its in areas where I wanted us to discuss to fill in, so we can start finalizing what we wanted to recommend in the program. For example, under recommendations 1B, I don't know if this was already discussed when I wasn't joined yet. What is the recommended points for the advanced program that we want to include for the Beyond MMC, since we were discussing a 4 to 6 year program? And is that still the length of the program that we want to recommend? My goal, is to try to insert, answers to these areas so that we can build on the recommendation for the framework. Go ahead, Peggy, I see your hand up.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry I missed the last meeting, but I did have a comment about 1B. And this is I'm just tossing this out there. I don't know whether you'll think it's sufficient, but what about if they had to achieve a minimum of 30 advanced education points within 5 years? And then what that would mean down in 1D is to maintain the advanced certificate designation requires six educational points a year, because if you use 30 and you divide it by 5 and it's a 5-year program, that's just 6. And I think that it's reasonable and doable for people who have full-time jobs.
Okay. Is everyone in agreement with that? Any other suggestions?
So,
Yes, President Pierce.
so Elizabeth, again, I think when this goes to be into the to the institute director, that's committee. My idea is that this not be a limited program, that it not be limited to 5 years, 6 years. That this be, the clerk can, maybe there's like SLCC has 3 different levels, but if you choose to do one particular level, that maybe you have to get a certain number of points to keep that level. You see what I'm saying? So there can be different programs within this, and you can advance if you so choose, but you could also choose to stay at a certain level, but you would have to gain a certain amount of points in order to retain that. So there's never an end, it's continuing, it's truly continuing education. There's not an end to it.
So Sherry, based on what you're saying, I mean, what would be in your mind a reasonable number of points that somebody had to obtain in 1 year to either move forward to another level or to maintain the current level?
So Peggy, I don't know what that is, and I think that you have a great suggestion with that, but I just want to kind of throw that out there, that I don't see this as a 5-year or 6-year. This has to be something that's, a sustaining type of education program. Otherwise, we're going to be back in the same boat again with our clerks, if there's an end. You know what I mean?
I think I think the idea that it really is lifelong learning and it doesn't really have an end point is a good idea. And that perhaps we should, where it says length, maybe we should just say, or maybe we should say something like, participants must obtain 6 educational points in 1 year to either retain the level that they are at or to continue moving forward. I mean, it practically will have to have some sort of hard number put in there, a minimum number.
Or could we remove the length requirement altogether and just include that in certification?
Yeah.
If it's just an annual requirement to keep the certification, and then adding a sentence that explains how certification could be lost. If 2 years has lapsed with no points or something to that effect.
But if you're in the program, I mean, if you apply to be in the program or you're somehow admitted to the program, then you should be required to do achieve a certain number of educational points every single year, because I think that shows your commitment to lifelong learning, which I think is part of the goal of this, if not that's part of the goal. And the other part of it is to, I guess, try to get cities and managers to pay for our training, which they haven't been doing. And I think there should be a minimum annual requirement, which would be an incentive for the managers. I'm acting today, so I guess if somebody came in and said, yeah, I would say, yeah, of course.
I have a question. If there is no minimum, and they enter the program, and it's just the program requires a certain number of educational points to stay in the program, will that mean then that there's no certificate issued at any point?
No, there is.
There should be a certificate.
Yeah,
there'd be a certificate. But again, I think maybe at this point, and Jennifer, I'll be quiet. At this point, I think getting into the weeds of this is I think that maybe the committee just throwing out these ideas and then letting the IDs and the education director come back to you with some suggestions on this that you can, agree on. I think that might be a better process than trying to
get down into
this.
Okay.
But that's just my suggestion, but sorry, Jennifer.
I just want to jump in real quick. Something to consider for the education department is to maybe do a beyond the MMC program that's tiered and have different tiers that you can continue and build upon, whether it's tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. If things are successful, then obviously you can create additional tiers if that's President Pierce, your goal, to create something that's lifelong. I would be careful about putting anything to have to be achieved within like a 1-year time frame. Depending on budget, you may have to you only have so much money in the department, and your deputy or your city clerk or other people may have to go to different training. So maybe doing something every 2 years or making that requirement a little bit looser, just so that the travel money can go around to other individuals within the department would be something just to consider. One thing I just wanted to touch on, I know that there was some concern about making sure from the last meeting that this is not a program based just for the US. It would be really nice to have a component part of this, a class where we learn about other countries and other places and how they govern and how it's made up. I mean, I would love to see something like that. It's not something I can go to and see a college class for. But I think that would make this a universal type of program where it's not just something for the US.
I like that idea. How do you all feel with adding that?
Go on to study abroad program. I will say this, and then I've got to scoot. I think that what I'm hearing, and I think what I hope we all agree on, is that progress needs to be shown. Once you enter into this program, progress needs to be shown that you are continuing on the path to a level of achievement within, and I like the idea of levels and achieving, a level. If it takes you 3 years and it takes somebody else 2 years, so be it. But you at least need to show some progress. And as you see in the guide or in the overview, and with SLCC's program, you are allowed a 1-year pass. So there is also an expectation with the SLCC program that we are using that you show some amount of progress each year, that you are moving forward to attain a level. So does that encapsulate what I was hearing from most people?
Yeah, I think if you had inactivity for a certain amount of time, then that would be justified. Just make sure, that it allows people, if they, like I said, with the training budget, the city clerk might do something, the assistant, we have records coordinators, other people going to other traveling, that it's allowed to be a reasonable amount of time if it's spread around within the city or town.
Right. And again, if you need to take a year off or you can apply for that and have your progress stalled. So I think that maybe that could be the length, then could be reworded to say progress must be shown on an annual basis, that you're continuing through a level. And then maybe, yes, like Jennifer suggested, you say, if there is inactivity for, I don't know, 18 months, whatever number everybody likes, then you'd have to reapply or something. Not necessarily lose what you got and start all over again, but you'd kind of have to reapply. And staff, I'm sure, will have to weigh in on how to do something like that.
Okay. At this point, then, under 1B, where it stated length, there was a suggestion to remove the word length and to just have some of that language go under certification under 1D. Is there a consensus to go in that direction, or do the members feel that there should be some kind of reference to the annual commitment in the program, or any feedback on that? Excuse me. I just want to know if I should strike that out and combine it with 1D, sort of under certification.
I think that would, why don't you give that a go, Elizabeth, and see
Okay.
what you can come up with
Okay.
based on our conversation. I
Okay,
think that could be all right.
okay. I'm making a note to try to combine those two. Based on my notes, I'll listen to the conversation again to make sure that I have a good understanding of what the members want to see as language to include. Are we under 1C as far as the cost? I listed that there because on the previous proposal for the framework, there was a reference to a cost of $200. Is that something that we want to establish at this point when we make the recommendation for the proposal for the framework? Or President Pierce, is that getting too much into the details?
I think we're getting a little bit into the details of that. I mean, I think that you just, let the B and the IDs know that, that's something that they need to maybe provide a recommendation on. Doesn't mean you guys have to accept it, but I don't think that you need to put an actual dollar amount in there. I mean, maybe even put the word reasonable. I don't know. I mean, you don't want to make it cost prohibitive for clerks. And so maybe even that statement that the cost not be,
reasonable cost to clerks.
yeah.
And I also wanted to mention, I took the framework that was previously proposed. I took out sections that we determined we were not going to go in a direction where previously we talked about tracks that would take you to get your records management and all of that. So I removed all of that and I kept sections that in the framework that seem to be in line with where we are currently in the discussion of the framework. So I left that cost there because it was stated before, and I hadn't heard it stated that we didn't want to provide a recommendation, but now I'm going to remove set B and just put reasonable cost to clerks based on a recommendation from B and the others. And attendance, I believe under 1B, we were in agreement to offer both in-person and online education sessions. Did we want to state the length of the deferment, or is that something also that we want to receive a recommendation back from B and the others? That was a comment that came out of our meeting regarding the elephant guide and how they have that option for a deferment. And we briefly touched on that just a few minutes ago. If someone for some reason can't continue with the program, we want to see continued activity, progress, to be shown once the person enters the program, from what I've understood. But do we want to have them include some type of option to have a deferment for some reason?
I think it's important to have a deferment period, and I think 1 year is reasonable.
Okay, so I'm going to leave that. And I didn't touch on 1A, the application. That was also something that was included in the original framework. I changed the wording just a little bit, but is that something that needs to be stated? I know that this will require a new application to enter into the program. What was mentioned before is that we would use portions of the MMC application to try to create an application to enter into this program. Does that still sound agreeable with what we want to recommend?
Again, I think that that's a staff call once you have, once the staff has worked on this and they bring back a more formal recommendation to the committee. I mean, obviously, we're going to need an application process, but what that looks like will depend on what the program eventually looks like.
And that wouldn't honestly be a part of the framework. I mean, there's gonna have to be an application, but it wouldn't, but those words in my mind would not have to be a part of the framework. I mean, that's just something that will have to happen later, and it's probably going to be something likely designed by staff that works for them. But I don't see that it necessarily has a place in here because it's just gonna be, it'll be part of it, but not part of the framework.
Okay, so I'm gonna remove that 1B, oh, excuse me, 1A. The committee, moving down to the section on the committee discussed the following as possible frameworks for the program. Under A, I don't know if we touched on this already when I was not connected, but did we want to state a recommendation on the 4 primary levels that we wanted to include in the program? I just put in those options based on some of the feedback we received. It just under leadership skills. Are there any suggestions for that, or is that something that?
Well, Angie had some comments. I think it might have been Elizabeth before you came on, and I think it would be good if you can, Angie, to repeat that just so Elizabeth can have heard that.
Okay, yeah. So I just wanted to make sure when we did our 5 skills, the committee before, when we did the 5 skills of a leader, I had categorized each one of those in management, leadership, supervision, and interpersonal skills. And my question was, did the leadership, supervision, and interpersonal skills fall into the management component of those focuses, or did we miss some of those along the way?
And what was the outcome of that discussion? Did we determine that we wanted to list management, leadership, supervision, interpersonal skills? And then I had put on part of the Post-it note, were there going to be subcategories under each one of those?
Right. So my question was, is the categories that we had come up with that everyone felt were like 5 skills of a leader, were all of those under the management component, and then, or were they intertwined with each one of those focuses? And I believe that Tammy had stated that she thought that all of those skills were intertwined within each one of the 4 focuses that you have here. I just want to make sure that all of those skills that had been listed on our prior committee are still part of what we want to be educated on, because some of those skills could have been something that one of you guys had stated that you may have been lacking on, and you didn't get a chance to actually be educated on those skills as an advanced manager or whatever it may be, a supervisor and so on.
Okay, so would it be appropriate then for me, if I'm understanding correctly, to list it, reword these 4 categories to state management, leadership, supervision, interpersonal skills, and attach an appendix or that they can review with all the suggested leadership skills that we discussed as options to include in the program?
That might be helpful, and then you can combine those skills along with what everybody has already spoken on from the elephant guide, and then you're coordinating everything together. That sounds reasonable to me, if the committee feels that's reasonable.
I sort of feel like we're getting a little too restrictive. just thinking about this, how it would practically play out, we're asking for an additional program above and beyond our conference, above and beyond our institute, above and beyond our academies. And then in addition to that, we're limiting it to certain subjects. I would love to see us just to continue on with a requirement for continuing education that fits into any of the IIMC roles of the clerk. I really think we should be more broad in this. And I understand this is advanced leadership, but we're getting that through our academies, through our institutes, our Region 9 Institute has an advanced institute with leadership program already. And so, and I guess I'm just kind of thinking out loud, but I feel like we're being too restrictive on what these topics could be. And I feel like a lot of the regions and the institute directors, when this goes to them for review, I'm anticipating them coming back and saying, you know, our program has this type of thing. Do we really need to create a new program? Or can we offer the additional continuing education on top of the MMC using our current programs? If we're having to do additional, that means that myself as an MMC, I've got to attend conference, academy, Athenian, institute, plus additional programs. So I'm struggling with being so specific and having an added program.
So this is Peggy, I'm sorry. You know, Casey, I think you offer a good comment, but I'm looking at the purpose in this draft, and it looks like the purpose, at least the way I'm reading it, and please correct me if I've misinterpreted this, is to allow for people to obtain those advanced educational points for this advanced beyond the MMC program through going to our state conferences and our academies and the IIMC conference and that sort of thing. I think it's taking that into account, but correct me if I'm wrong, because I could be misreading this.
So I saw somewhere in here where it's added program. It's developing a program and structure. So I guess if, as long as we're clear that it's through those programs, that would be great. The way that I'm reading some of the language, it looks like it's similar, but it's added and it's separate.
Well, when my understanding is when it's a separate program, separate from the MMC, that it's apart from the MMC. But if you point out to me where that's not clear, I'll try to revise it so it is. So this advanced beyond the MMC program that's separate from the MMC program would be held at our conferences, and as mentioned under the purpose, under the state and regional conferences and academy sessions. But it would be a third program. There would be the CMC, the MMC, and then this beyond the MMC, if I understand correctly.
Okay, so that's great. That helps me. Thank you. I still wonder if the coursework could be a little broader than limiting it to 4 or 5 specific topics.
Can I say something really quick? Sorry. And I guess I'm kind of hoping that this beyond the MMC program is beyond the courses that we have. I have my CMC, I have my MMC, I have my Athenian Fellow. I want something that I haven't seen before. And like I said, with the last meeting, learning about other countries, learning about how things are done differently, opening up the mindset for that is something I'm hoping that this will bring that's different. And in looking at the elephant guide, one piece that I took was on page 29, which was the manager's role. And it talked about investigating and evaluating the strategic role of a manager. And I thought of having that leadership component and one of the classes or something go into seeing a city manager, having them talk to us, having them explain things to us, going beyond where we are and what we learn in the conferences and the classes that we have, to kind of broaden our horizons and make us think of, you know, not necessarily that there's another step, but where can we learn and grow from different types of people. And I really liked the manager's role in the class that they had about, you know, almost interviewing someone, but maybe having them come to us and learning just something bigger and broader than what we have now.
And Jennifer, I'm trying to set up a conversation with a municipal clerk that I know and have known for many years, who advanced, and she's now a manager. And I kind of want to pick her brain, and we just haven't connected yet, in order for me to, I want to know, you know, Jeanette, how could you have been better prepared to take on the role of a manager? And so I'm interested in, you know, her comments about how, you know, what type of education courses or whatever that would have helped her. So Casey, it is a higher level of learning. It is. But it's more at like, for you to keep in mind, it'd be more like the academy level or more of what Region 9 offers with the PD4 level. So it's a higher level, but it can be facilitated through the institutes and, you know, our state conferences and that. So we just have to develop a different curriculum.
So if I'm at this point, I'm going to, it would have been 2A if I had noted it correctly, but I'll keep the 4 categories at this point under as leadership, supervision, interpersonal skills, and excuse me, with management first. Add an appendix with all the list of the leadership skills that we discussed, and I'll bring it back to when we have our next meeting. If anyone wants to think about anything else that they want to see as a recommendation as part of this framework. Is that what I'm understanding is the direction we want to go? And Jennifer, with regards to what you mentioned, you want to see what other countries do, be exposed to, like more international exposure. I can add that into considerations if you all think that that's appropriate where to list it.
I just know it was an issue at the last meeting where we wanted to make sure this was not just US based, and to get away from that and really open things up, whether it's different levels of management, different places to go with this, different countries and how, I mean, it's, you know, I would hope that this is beyond, like I said, the MMC classes, the basic leadership classes. I'm hoping that this can be so much more. And I think it will grab people and then people will want to enroll in it.
I would agree with that. We have I apologize, I can't recall the name of it, where we can go abroad, study abroad. Yes, so I could see how that would be an important aspect of the program to offer. That's beyond the MMC.
Yeah, and it would be nice to bring that if we can't, you know, I'm having a hard time here, you know, as an assistant city clerk getting out of the state. And I'm finagling that next year, so I can try to get to Arkansas, but to be able to even touch on trying to go abroad is like, no, not happening for me. But it'd be nice to have something brought to me where I can see other countries at a reasonable cost, how they do things, learn from them without it necessarily be me trying to, you know, get out of the United States.
I would say that.
Never say never, Jennifer, never say never. Save your pennies.
That made me think of a component that we could maybe include is like a virtual series or virtual session of the study abroad where you could get advanced points through that. Might be an idea.
Okay. I'm including that. Thank you. Okay. And moving along to, unless anyone has anything else to add, I'm going to D, sorry, those, number F, where it says, who will be facilitating the courses in the program? This was something that Ashley mentioned the last time we met. As she stated that it was an important part of the framework that we needed to include who were expecting to facilitate the courses. What I saw on the framework that we proposed before was that we were going to utilize the existing institutes, state, provincial associations, and IIMC. Does anyone have anything to add to that section? Is that still what we're recommending? At this point, then I'm going to leave it as it is. I don't know, I can speak with Ashley more on that section. I'm not sure what other information we could provide or what when she stated that, without getting into too much detail, but who are we expecting to facilitate these classes is what I was understanding we needed to state as part of the framework. Did I not understand that correctly, or does anyone have any suggestions?
I think you're correct, Elizabeth. It sounds like it's something that we probably won't be able to flush out today, only because are the institutes going to want to be involved in it? Is it something that IIMC is going to need to spearhead? We don't really have those pieces to make that decision.
Mhm.
Is it something that it's going to go back to the associations to bring out? So yeah, we can definitely talk about it more. I think it's something that when B actually brings this to those institute directors and the EAG, that it might be something we could probably flush out a little more then.
Okay, so
They
I'll,
can-
go ahead, I'm sorry.
Elizabeth, they can know that that's the committee's recommendation, that that's a committee's recommendation, that those entities, all work together to facilitate the program. So I think it's good as is.
Okay. And then under additional considerations, are we as a committee still recommending this consideration under A? Oh, well, that we talked about, I heard that discussion. The dashboard doesn't apply to the framework. C, I wasn't sure what forums this referred to. Does anyone know from prior discussions? Does it mean, like, was it referring to in person versus online, or I'm not really certain what they meant by that, or what we may have discussed that to clarify.
Sorry, which one, Elizabeth?
It's under additional considerations under C. Under allow the state association in coordination with the institute's directors to determine the advanced educational training forums offered for those members choosing to enter the Beyond MMC program.
This is Peggy, and I kind of think, I mean, it seems to me that that's the way it works right now with institutes. For example, if for us in Oregon anyway, when we want to sponsor an academy session here, we have it approved through our institute. So our institute director does that approval, and I look at that as no different than what we are doing right now, as education chairs in the various states, at least in Region 9.
Okay.
I think it's important that we have it there, because otherwise, if we don't have those training sessions approved by the institute directors, which is the way at least I think it works, and it works well, then who would be the approval group? I mean, we don't want to lay that on the IIMC staff, really. So I don't know, what we have works really well in my mind, and I would think that that's the way I read that. That's what I thought it meant. And one thing I did think about that particular paragraph is that I would just take that word forums out. I see that it was highlighted,
Mhm.
but why it's just educational training offered. I mean, that's just a picky thing, sorry. But I think it's important the way it's written.
Okay, that clarifies that section for me. I don't know if anyone else has anything to add. I'm going to strike out forums and just keep that section there. There's nothing further under additional considerations under D. Is the committee still recommending this consideration? This was an option to or consideration to have a certified facilitation and a certified trainer course as part of the program. This was in our previous framework that we put forth. Is that something that we still want to recommend?
I think it's a good idea, Liz, depending on how far along you get within the program.
Yeah, I mean, I like the whole train the trainer type of program. I think it's important, and I also think in a way, it's a component of leadership. So I think it would be good. I don't know if it needs to be there or if it should just be, when courses are developed pursuant to what would be under the committee discussed the following, that could be a session, or a section underneath management. I mean, it's a leadership skill, and anyway, just thinking out loud, sorry.
Okay.
I think it's a goal. It's a good goal. It's a goal of the committee. And I think it's important that it be there, that it was important to the committee that that's an outcome, I guess, of this, that we have. And that's what I've thought as well, is that we have a lot of clerks that we, should be able to call in to at the state level, at our region level, and during IMC conference. And if they have these capabilities in this training, that's a great asset for the organization.
I think too, the IMC would have a lot of the framework for that with the Athenian Fellow, and then becoming someone that can teach and do the book reviews. So they might have a lot of that in place.
Doesn't California already have a program like this, the California Clerks Association? There's something that's striking me that, and I know that Joan would know about this, or I think Joan would know about this, because a couple years ago, I'm pretty sure that the California Clerks Association was offering a train the trainer type of program.
I can inquire with them, and I know our state association used to have a train-the-trainer as class as well. I don't believe they've had it in quite some time, but I can also inquire with them.
This is Tina at the Orange County Sanitation District in California, and they did offer, it was right before COVID, they did start to offer a train the trainer, which I was extremely interested in. It was really cost prohibitive, but we did start going down that path, and it was a collaboration between our MMC academies, and our CMC Academy.
Okay.
So it was there. They did have a really good framework. And for me to say it was cost prohibitive, my agency typically will spend money. So when it was cost prohibitive, it was that carries a little bit more weight because we do tend to spend on training.
Okay, so it would be a great part of the program if we could offer.
Yeah, it looked like a phenomenal. I was disappointed that I couldn't do it. It looked phenomenal. I had so much so that I actually almost considered, spending my own money for it. It looked phenomenal.
Okay, so I'm going to keep that section in, and it also for me falls in line with that number letter E, where I asked for the consideration to include a provision for retired clerks that might want to continue receiving access to education because they would have the experience to train the trainer. And that would also pull them into the program as well.
Well, if that provision wasn't there, what would keep them from doing this anyway?
I'm not sure how with the MMC program, well, most clerks, I believe, a majority of clerks that are retired have their MMC, is what I'm understanding. There may be those that do not and who stay a member and may continue to attend the programs and the sessions and to continue to get certified. I don't know too much about that. The clerks that I've met in attending the different conferences that are retired, at that point, they've had their MMC. But if we create a Beyond the MMC program, they can attend it, but they're still going to be able, as long as they complete whatever the requirements are, they still have the ability to receive any certification that we're offering. Is it going to be at a discounted cost for retired clerks?
Well, I feel like, that's a discussion that wouldn't be necessarily a part of this framework, but I think it's a good discussion to hold. And I don't know if retired clerks are currently, receiving discounts for training, but it's certainly a discussion as somebody who's going to retire, well worth holding.
So do you all think I should just include this, strike out that consideration then at this point?
No. I think it's good, Elizabeth. I think it's a good point to make so that, again, it's just a goal of the committee or a recommendation of the committee that retired clerks, that be taken into consideration. The question of whether or not they have to have their MMC is a further discussion, but I think that the idea of it is good.
Okay. So at this point, I'm going to revise the framework based on our discussion, add language that was stated during this meeting, and send out another draft so that we can move forward with trying to finalize the framework. And I'll attach the appendix of the leadership skills that we previously discussed, and that way we can try to move along.
Elizabeth, can you talk about next step? I know that you and I talked in an email about, once there's agreement on this final, is it the committee's recommendation then that this go to the ID, this ID committee? I don't think it should go to all the IDs. That's just my thoughts. I think it should go to the smaller committee that's already established. And I think we should add an international person to that existing committee and to be. So to move it along, I just, is that kind of where you're gonna go with this, Elizabeth?
Yeah, I can take what we've discussed today, and the revised framework with everything, added and removed based on today's discussion, and forward it to the ID, and you said an international committee member to review. Would that be agreeable to the members so that they can provide their input before we move forward with anything further for discussion?
And to have B work with that group
Yes,
as well?
yes.
Yeah.
Sorry. Is that agreeable to the members? Yes, okay. And I'll share the rough draft that gets forwarded.
Oh, one more thing. Can the committee, after you guys take a look at this and you all agree, can you develop a timeline of when you want to see this back? So that group knows, look, we're looking for something in May. And so it has to come back to the committee again. So maybe work to develop a timeline for them so that they know what they're working with.
Okay, I've added that. I'll work on getting a timeline so that we can move along accordingly. Is there anything else? Okay, thank you everyone for your input. I apologize that I couldn't connect earlier. There was firewall preventing me from connecting. Thank you, Bea, for being here, and President Pierce for your input and direction on
Yeah,
this.
just before you sign off, I want to thank all of you on this committee. You guys have been phenomenal. You've worked so hard on this, and I know that we've had to take a couple different directions with it, but coming back together and doing the work on this is just, I can't thank you enough. And so thank you for that support.
I also want to mention in the meantime, while I'm redoing this draft, if you have anything else that you think of or you would like to add, please just send me an email and, I'll work to include it. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.